The ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Very good evening, very good morning to you in the UK, live from Washington, D.C. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America.
And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible.
Well, that, of course, was a couple of weeks ago before Christmas. But since then, we know that Donald Trump has achieved net zero migration during his first year in office. Meanwhile, back in the UK, GB News can exclusively reveal that Sir Keir Starmer's small boats record is officially worse than any of his predecessors, despite what he promised coming into office. More than 65,870 small boat migrants have made the journey across the Channel. That's worse even than your mate, Thomas Corbett, Dylan Boris Johnson.
Look, our answer to offensive speech is not to censor and silence it, but to expand the free marketplace of ideas. The answer to disfavored speech is better speech, more speech.
Another GB News exclusive for you. The Speaker of the United States House of Representatives joined Nigel Farage earlier today and told of his concerns about free speech in the UK.
Of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests, obeying contradictory thoughts.
Well, Big Brother is definitely watching. How do you feel about live facial recognition on the streets of the UK to cut crime? Well, police in Croydon are boasting about its effectiveness, but at what cost to innocent people? We're going to have a great debate about that this evening. And one of the most famous families in the world have had a very public fallout. For once, it's not Prince Harry. It is, of course, Brooklyn Beckham. He has slammed his parents very publicly, David and Victoria, on social media. He's accused them of briefing against him to the press, and he claims that his Spice Girl mum ruined the first dance with his wife at their wedding. I bet there are two sides to that story. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Thank you for joining me tonight. Get in touch, won't you, gbnews.com/your say. Joining me this evening is my panel. Former Obama policy advisor Laurie A. Watkins is with us this evening. Good evening, Laurie. And political consultant and commentator Thomas Corbett Dillon. I've already had a little go at you about your mate Boris Johnson. There's a lot more of that to come, Thomas, always. And in London tonight to take us through what's making the newspaper front pages, businessman, activist, very familiar face to GB News viewers. Adam Brooks is with us as well. Evening, Adam.
Evening, how are you?
Hello, mate. Right, thank you all at home as well for joining us tonight. So, moving on, a new report by the Brookings Institution reveals that Donald Trump has achieved net zero migration for the first time in more than 50 years. Shutting the southern border and forced plus voluntary deportations means that more people left America than arrived in 2025. Would you welcome this in the UK? Meanwhile, in the UK, GB News can reveal that Sir Keir Starmer's small boats record is officially worse than any of his predecessors. That means that more than 65,870 small boat migrants, whether you call them economic migrants, asylum seekers, refugees, they've completed the journey across the Channel, including 273 of them that arrived there today and are probably tucked up in a nice warm hotel room tonight. Sir Keir's total surpassed Boris Johnson's 65,815 figure, but he did that in almost half the time, with the former Tory leader needing 39 months in number 10 to reach today's grim milestone. Let me know your thoughts by visiting gbnews.com/your say. With me now, though, is international security and border control expert Henry Bolton, and also Simon Hankinson, a senior researcher in border security and immigration at the Heritage Foundation here in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining me. So, President Trump achieved more than double the economic growth of the UK in 2025, despite this low migration, which detonates the idea that economic strength can only be built on mass migration, doesn't it? Henry, let me come to you first. What do we make of these two countries now and this stark comparison?
Well, Bev, good evening. One thing I'd say is that every border across the globe has a different migration and, in fact, risk profile to any other. They're all unique. But so we should be cautious about comparing borders. That said, what this shows, what the American performance in this respect demonstrates, is that if you stop making a destination country attractive to migrants, then they will not come. And that's the bottom line. People do not travel unless they are absolutely compelled to somewhere that they don't want to go. Ergo, they want to go to the United States, or they did. They continue to want to come to the United Kingdom. And until the United Kingdom learns that they will continue coming legally and illegally by whatever means they can, whilst this is an attractive destination for them, well, you know, they'll carry on coming. We'll continue to bear the cost. And of course, as you've just pointed out, and we've said it, the evidence is there's a plethora of evidence in the United Kingdom now as well, showing that actually that mass immigration is a burden on the economy, not a bonus. And so, you know, and the American example demonstrates that, although there are a number of factors that feed into GDP and so on.
Absolutely, Henry. Simon, let me get your take on this as somebody that lives here in America. How has Trump done this? I did outline some of the ways he's done it, but I think one of the bits I find most fascinating is about 1.4 million people self-deported. What does that process look like? And is that something that could work in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, it varies from person to person, but Henry's entirely right. It's the magnet that sucks people in. And what we've seen recently is research showing pretty clearly that every low-skilled migrant, which unfortunately includes a lot of asylees and refugees, is going to cost the British or the American taxpayer, $500,000 through their lifetime. So that's 65,000 figure. Multiply that by $500,000. That's an awful lot of money. You have to make it clear to people that they cannot come to the country with a bogus asylum claim, which I'm sorry to say, but most of them are. They're not genuine refugees under British law, American law, and they cannot then get a free house, a hotel, either a job that doesn't pay enough taxes to support them, or no job at all, healthcare, education, and the whole package. Because right now, if you live in a developing country, that's a pretty good offer, and so people are taking advantage of that offer. You have to turn that magnet off and make it clear to people that there's no free ride. And right now, the free ride is still, the green light is on in the UK, but in the US, it was turned off. So I think a lot of people have left of their own free will. And at the border last month, 10,000 people showed up illegally. Last year was 100,000 in the same month. The year before that, 300,000.
Henry, we have to give Labour some credit, don't we? Because they have deported more people in recent months. You look like the look on your face that you're not convinced even about the statistics, that they have deported more people than they did at the end of 2024 when Starmer first got into office, and that they are doing some good in terms of the overall immigration figures, I think, for 2025. Are they not?
You're being very generous. I mean, yes. I mean,
I'm trying.
Yeah, I mean, if they were school pupils, I might give them 1 out of 10, perhaps, not even that, possibly. Yeah, they are. But look, they're also, the accommodation issue is chaotic. The legal framework that they're playing around with, they're actually making it worse, more complicated, rather than simplifying it and then allowing expeditious processing of asylum claims. They're saying that they're replicating the Danish model, which has also been very successful legally within the European Union, within the ECHR context. But that's predicated on the assumption that refugees, if you're granting somebody asylum, they're a refugee. They are by definition then being given temporary refuge until it's safe for them to return. In the UK, we've got a totally different legal framework which says if we're going to grant them refugee status, we're effectively saying we're happy to have them here forever. And the other thing is, the point was just made. The fact of the matter is that these are economic migrants, and that's what the United States has recognised. These are people coming to you can't blame them. They're looking for a better life, but they are. Bev, this is going to be quoted probably, but they are. I'm not going to call them parasites, but they have a parasitic effect on housing, on public utilities, on the welfare state, on a whole range of issues. And until the government, this government or any government, starts to deal with all of those issues, then I am not going to be saying on this show or any other that the government is doing well.
Simon, let me just ask you this, though, because what occurred to me, if we do take our immigration down to net zero, we aren't going to have enough people who are prepared to do low-paid, dirty, unpleasant jobs, because, frankly, there are too few British young people who are prepared to do those jobs. Is that going to be a problem here in America?
My son just got his first job. He's doing a master's degree, and he said, "Hey, Dad, I got a dishwashing job." And I said, "That's awesome. My first job was washing dishes. I've had 23 jobs. I've driven a cab. I've done construction. I've worked in restaurants." You know what? If young people were paid reasonably and didn't get everything for free, they'd figure out a way to go take those jobs. So, yeah, I don't think that's an excuse that we can use in the West. I think we need to get back the grandparents of those kids. Trust me, they work down mines, every day, including Saturday. They worked hard. I'm glad we've improved working conditions since then. But the bottom line is the British are capable people, and you can do everything you need to do, just like the Japanese and every other country.
I think, Bev,
Okay, thank you. Go on, Henry, just on that point, because we've got record numbers, Henry, haven't we, of young men who are neither in employment or work, and maybe Simon's right. Maybe they just have to get off their backsides and go and wash some dishes.
Yeah, indeed. But I think this government, successive governments in the UK at least, have been incapable of understanding cause and effect chains. You know, if you're going to change policy or change something over here, then it's going to have an impact over there and over there and over there, and it's going to have a knock-on effect. And this is another example of that. If you're going to deal with this, you've quite rightly, a lot of people have identified this as a potential risk to the economy, but then you manage that risk. You identify it, and you introduce policies to address it. That includes adult education. It includes better pay and conditions for people working in the care sector and so on. All of these things, you know, then you get talking boats. You get a rising tide floats all boats that way, just through better governance.
Which is a lovely analogy to leave it on, gentlemen, and very apt. Henry Bolton there, and also from the Heritage Foundation, Simon Hankinson. Thank you both so much. Let's carry on that conversation now with my panel, former Obama policy advisor Laurie Watkins and political commentator Thomas Corbett-Dillon, and in London, Adam Brooks. Adam, let me come to you first over there in the UK. When you hear that President Trump has achieved net zero migration in 2025, in fact, today for you, Adam, tomorrow for us will be exactly 1 year since Donald Trump's inauguration. He's done quite a lot in that time. But this would have been at the top of his wish list, I'm sure. When you hear that America has achieved that, what's your kind of emotional reaction to that as a Brit, Adam?
I'm very jealous. They have a proper leader that actually puts Americans first, you know, not foreigners. We have a leader that puts foreigners above us. We are bankrolling to billions per year foreign men, and it is nearly all men, coming from France, from all over the world. We have people from Morocco, Egypt, Pakistan, Ethiopia. What wars are they fleeing? And they are being dumped into local hotels. We're seeing sexual assaults, we're seeing paedophilia, we've seen murders, we're seeing crime off the charts, and our Prime Minister doesn't even address it. He makes us out to be the bad guys. So look, America said they wanted immigration down, and they have a leader that has put them first.
Yeah, Laurie, that's what people voted for in this country, isn't it?
Yes, they did.
And is that the right thing to have voted for, in your opinion? I'm guessing not.
Well, so I'm going to try to stay away from politics on this one, not because I'm afraid to talk about it.
You're on a politics show, Laurie Watkins.
No, but I really want to get into the numbers. There was a Brookings Institute report that came out today, and it was pretty striking to see that, you know, in no new job growth, it would actually be in the negatives for the year of 2026, and only towards the end of December, there was between a 20 and 50,000 increase in jobs added here in the United States. And the forecast is that it will dampen the GDP, the labor force, consumer spending. All of these things are going to go into the negative here in the United States, because as one of your panelists in the previous segment said, that we're not going to have people, and we're already seeing that here with the aggressive immigration policies and rounding people up, that they won't be able to do the jobs that need to be done in the healthcare industry, the service industry, the construction, the housing, the list goes on and on.
But one of the reasons that those jobs are not there is because of AI. A big reason that jobs have disappeared is because of the AI revolution, which has taken jobs away from people. So maybe as Americans, Thomas, you should be celebrating. There are fewer jobs to go around. You're going to need fewer people because there aren't going to be the income streams for the whole population.
Yeah, you know, and I think you're right. The Americans did vote for this, and you know, if you actually think about this, it's quite crazy. It's a 2,000-mile land border that they've managed to secure. Meanwhile, the UK can't secure this tiny bit of water between us and France. It really does just make you think that there's a reason why they're not doing it. And I love this Labour government. They love to copy Australia when it's like draconian things. You know, if Australia's done this, we'll copy them. But when it comes to actually a country that has stopped boat crossings. Australia is a perfect example, but they won't copy them. You know, they need to do turnaround at sea, which is what Australia did, and then process people offshore, and that would end the boats overnight. But they refuse to do it. You can only say because they want the people here. It's crazy. So yes, I think the UK are looking on at this and thinking, wow, Trump's done it, and you know, Starmer hasn't. It must be a reason why.
Yeah, well, is it they want the people there, or is it just that they are fitting in with all of the ethos, that all of the ideologies that will be discussed this week in Davos by all of those non-governmental organisations who believe in the utopia of a borderless world? This country does not believe in that. Right, thank you all so much for now. Let's move on to our second top story tonight. It's that Donald Trump said he was 100% committed to hitting the UK and European allies with tariffs in protest at opposition to his plan to control Greenland. Today, the president refused to rule out using the military to seize the Danish territory. When asked by a news channel if he would use force to seize Greenland, he said, no comment. Now, this comes after Sir Keir Starmer held an emergency press conference earlier this morning responding to Trump's tariffs, saying his tariffs are wrong, and he said a trade war is in no one's interest. And just to bring you some breaking news in the last few moments, Trade Secretary Peter Kyle has said the UK's relationship with Donald Trump's American administration is being tested by the Greenland crisis. Peter Kyle has said we have good, strong relationships. Part of the uniqueness of this administration is that they are an administration of real characters who are quite unique, and it's been really interesting and rewarding getting to know them. Can you see the but coming over the horizon? But, he said, at moments like this, relationships are tested, and yes, of course, we are having frank conversations. Well, that's Peter Kyle there, Digital Secretary. A lot of the Big Brother stories that we're going to be talking about in this show tonight lie in his mucky hands, in my opinion. But joining me now on this is Joshua S. Trevino, Senior Fellow for the Western Hemisphere Initiative at the America First Policy Institute. Joshua, thank you so much for joining me. What a pleasure to see you. Right, so apparently the UK-US relationship is being tested. Well, it doesn't take a psychic to work that one out. It's in a very bad place at the moment, isn't it? And where do you see this going, Josh?
I think it's important to understand that it's been in a bad place for a while, and it's been in a bad place for a lot of the reasons that the Vice President pointed out over a year ago at the Munich Security Conference in 2025. Differing values, differing understanding of rights, different understanding of responsibilities that are attendant to allies and friends. And so what we see now is certainly a crisis in itself, but it's one that's been a long time coming, and it's going to take a while to get out of it.
And just explain to people, Joshua, because I think there's President Trump is losing the communications war over Greenland, regardless of whether he ever gets to seize it. He's not explaining to people why he thinks this is in America and Europe's interest, that America have more control. The rhetoric around this has been so noisy and so sort of acquisitive that actually I think he's failing to communicate why. Just explain to people why he wants Greenland.
Yeah, what I can tell you is what the American interest in Greenland is, which has been fairly constant for almost a century now, actually. So the United States first has an interest in Greenland almost 100 years ago, and then obviously it accelerates in the post-war era. Our interest in Greenland is really concurrent with a lot of the European interest in Greenland. We have an interest in Arctic shipping routes. There's obviously mineral wealth there. Those of us, well, all of us who are concerned with missile defense coming over the polar route need to be concerned with Greenland. It simply occupies a tremendously strategic location, as do other polar places like Alaska, for example. And so that's the source of the American interest in the island.
And it's about the rare earth minerals, Josh, and it's also, I mean, when you actually look at the positioning of it, it's sort of remarkable that America hasn't had more control of this huge piece of land, actually, up until now, because of that little naval pinch point that we're seeing there between Greenland, Iceland, United Kingdom. That passage is incredibly important, isn't it, in terms of submarines, missiles, and if Russia wanted to take a swipe at Europe or America, Greenland would be the first person to know. They'd be the first place to know. Why isn't Trump able to communicate this?
Well, I'll have to let the White House communications apparatus speak for itself. But what you're accurately pointing out, Bev, is what they call the GI-UK gap, which was a known choke point. Cold War, a lot of NATO resources were devoted to it. What's new now is the diminished sea ice, which opens up sea lanes for longer periods during the year, and also to the west of Greenland in ways that wasn't present before. And so that obviously increases its strategic importance.
Yeah. Okay, Joshua, thank you so much. Joshua Trevino there from the America First Institute. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a very busy show ahead of us. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
We are cracking down on free speech. Is this deeply felt within the Republican Party?
It is.
Speaker Johnson has weighed in on the brewing diplomatic row between America and the UK over the erosion of freedom of speech and the possibility of the British government banning Elon Musk's X. He's going to be talking in Parliament tomorrow. We're going to preview that. This is The Late Show Live only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev. Now, I'm here with you until 2 o'clock in the morning in the UK, 9 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. A very special guest has been in the UK today. It's the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mike Johnson. He was meeting his British counterpart, Lindsay Hoyle. You can see it here on the screen. He's also been meeting GB News' Nigel Farage. And he talked about his concerns over free speech in the UK. This is what he said to GB News.
Free speech debate is very, very real. There is an American perception, it seems to me, that somehow we're picking on Elon Musk. We are cracking down on free speech. Is this deeply felt within the Republican Party?
It is. It's one of our core principles. We believe in the free marketplace of ideas. My background is in constitutional law, and I used to actually litigate free speech cases, religious liberty cases in the courts, and of course in the court of public opinion. Look, our answer to offensive speech is not to censor and silence it, but to expand the free marketplace of ideas. The answer to disfavored speech is better speech, more speech. So as conservatives, that is our general philosophy, is that we don't want to just get in the business of government turning down the voices they disagree with, because it ultimately leads, in our view, to great harm. I mean, ultimately, let's be honest, it's the conservative viewpoints that are typically targeted by governments. The people who are freedom-minded and, the rugged individualists are the ones who keep government at bay.
But I mean, government ministers here are openly speculating about X being banned. Yeah. What would that do for our relationship?
I think it would be a detriment to the people of Great Britain and to the UK.
So that was Speaker Mike Johnson in the UK, and he's going to be addressing Parliament tomorrow. When I hear phrases, Laurie, like expanding the free marketplace of ideas and rugged individualists keep the government at bay, my heart slightly sings. Does yours?
So that interview was very interesting. Here in the United States, it's very interesting for me to see Speaker Mike Johnson waxing poetry about freedom of speech and how he supports that for the people of Great Britain, of all across the UK. That's horse you-know-what. I can't say it here. I'll be in trouble. Horse manure. Because here, let's look at the state of Minnesota, for example, where people are getting rounded up, getting thrown into jail, and they're being released. A whole expose just came out about an hour ago of about 55, 60 people in Minnesota that weren't even charged with anything. They took their coats, they took everything they had. They're in these freezing cells. They let them out days later. They don't have cell phones, etc. All for protesting peacefully. So it's funny that he talks about, the First Amendment and that he protects it, but, not here in the United States. The other thing I will say, Nigel Farage didn't make a Freudian slip when he said Elon Trump. That's exactly right. Elon Trump. And he's here, in my opinion, what I think happened was Trump said, hey, Elon needs help over there with his company. Go over there. We're going to send one of the highest level people that we can from the government to try to, smooth things over there. And that's why Mike Johnson is there, to help Elon Musk and X and his business interests, and not really anything for the British people.
Thomas Corbett-Dillon, Mike Johnson was just there as a salesman for X, not a man of principle.
Well, I think that's completely insane. And I think on the Minnesota point, I think we've all seen the videos. No one thinks they are peacefully protesting. If anything, they're rioting.
Right.
But, the fact that he's over there is important. Obviously, he's there for the 250th anniversary. But the question is whether when he actually addresses, he's addressing the Commons and the Lords combined, will he raise free speech to them? I understand that some of the people in his team, he's there, he's been invited, it's supposed to be about 250. He doesn't want to be too political, but I think they have to. I think the American administration are really upset with what's going on in the UK. So we hope that he'll just call it out to all of their faces and say, look, if you don't believe in free speech, you are not going to continue to be an ally of the United States.
Adam, it feels like the UK is in a real place right now where we have to decide, where Starmer has to decide, are we pro-EU or are we pro-America? He's been pulled in both directions over the Greenland situation particularly. What should he do, Adam?
Look, he's a coward. Keir Starmer never even answers a question, let alone takes a side. He's trying to sit on the fence and keep everyone happy. You can't do that. Now, as a Brit, I would feel safer with Donald Trump in the American administration watching our back than Macron and European leaders. I don't believe they're our friends. I believe, they work against us a lot of the time. I'm not really liking what's going on at the moment with some of the things Trump is doing, but I do feel a lot more safer under Donald Trump than the rest of Europe. But let's remember, we are living under the most authoritarian government of my lifetime. Free speech is at risk. I don't know if you see my online spat with Deborah Meaden, but it's gone everywhere, like in the papers and online. Maybe millions have seen that, where so many people didn't realise how many cases of people being sacked, prosecuted or cancelled because of what they've said in this country. I think even Deborah Meaden was shocked at the blowback that she got from that. So there is a real problem in this country.
Yeah, just Just tell us a bit about that, Adam. For people in America and for Laurie who may not know who Deborah Meaden is, she's the equivalent of Shark Tank you have here. We call it Dragon's Den in the UK. So she's a successful businesswoman. And I had a bit of a go at Deborah Meaden on X this week, Adam, because I was pointing out to her when she was celebrating the FTSE 100 having this record highs. I was saying, as a wealthy businesswoman, does she not realise that those are some of the biggest corporations in the world, and she's not doing anything for small business owners like you? She's celebrating, and yet she purports to be left-wing and Labour. So what was your fight with her about? What happened?
Don't worry, I reminded her about just how silly her reply to the FTSE 100 tweet was. But look, I put about there's a lot of people in this country that are cancelled, persecuted, or even arrested for things that they've said in public or things they've said online. And she come back very arrogantly, I felt, with examples, ? Well, she was bombarded with some really big names that had been cancelled. I mean, it blew up in her face. I gave her an example and she just ignored it. But in the end, she was given so much blowback from this, she had to respond. And just a couple of nights ago, she admitted that she shouldn't maybe have replied how she did to me. I think she thought that I was going to say something about, you know, burning down hotels is okay. She really misread the page on this, and I feel like she's been educated, and I think she feels very silly to that. I mean, I've been sort of nice since and said, look, let's draw a line under it. We've highlighted it to millions of people. More people know about the free speech problem in the UK because of our online spat, and I left it at that. But, yeah, we don't agree on very much, me and Deborah.
Laurie, let me just ask you, though, as somebody that I know you believe in free speech, because we've had that discussion multiple times on this show, is there not a little bit of you that's proud when you see Speaker Johnson go to the UK and uphold that very valuable principle?
Yes, of course, Bev, because that's in our Constitution here. But just last week on Friday, a reporter the FBI showed up at her house, took her laptop, 2 computers, 2 home computers, her cell phone, and an Apple Watch, because they thought that she was communicating with a source who worked at the Pentagon. That puts every single journalist, and I hope you would agree with me that that's a problem here in the United States, that we should not go after reporters, we should not go after journalists and demand that they turn over their sources and their laptops and their information. John Bolton, the former Attorney General, Letitia James. I could go on and on about these investigations being done that have absolutely reprehensively caused harm to these individuals, and it's all over freedom of speech because the president didn't like things that they said about them.
I'm not familiar with the case that you just mentioned about the woman who was working at the Pentagon. What I will say
is... No, she's a reporter, and her source was in the Pentagon.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know enough about it, as I say, but all I do know is when it comes to the Pentagon, this government has clamped down incredibly hard on journalists working in the Pentagon because they believe... Yes, I
used to work there, and it doesn't represent or look like anything that I used to, anyone has been used to going in that building. It's completely changed. The press has been kicked out of the Pentagon, for God's sakes. That's another violation of the First Amendment right.
But surely as a journalist, being allowed into the Pentagon should be taken very, very seriously. Our journalists aren't even allowed the access into Westminster that we get here in the White House, walking in and out every day like we are here. Surely they needed to tighten up security around the Pentagon.
That wasn't, I asked that you research the case because that's not exactly what it was about. It was a person connected that worked in the Pentagon, but it wasn't about her going into the Pentagon. That's not what it was about.
Okay. No. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
We've got time for a break so I can look into it, can't I? Right, still to come on The Late Show Live.
Get the engagement officers, the officers you see around, just to go make that engagement with them to say, hello, you've been flagged up on facial recognition, and go from there.
Facial recognition cameras in real time in Croydon have apparently helped nick over 100 wanted people. But is the use of these cameras a welcome breakthrough in a war on crime or an invasion of privacy with potential untold harms to all sorts of innocent people? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner, on GB News. So the Metropolitan Police have arrested more than 100 suspects in just a few months after switching on live facial recognition cameras across Croydon, which is officially designated a crime hotspot. The system discreetly mounted on lampposts, some might say secretively, and street furniture looks like ordinary CCTV, but when activated it scans faces in real time, catching criminals wanted for offences stretching back up to 20 years. On average, one arrest, they tell us, is being made every 34 minutes that the cameras are running. Now, supporters say it is a crime-fighting breakthrough, but the Equality and Human Rights Commission has previously banded the policy unlawful, warning of serious risks to privacy and civil liberties. Police chiefs across the country are also looking at around 100 projects in which officers are trialling the use of AI to help combat crime in what is being compared to the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, a film which is basically about exactly that. This is finding criminals before they commit a crime. With me now is retired Scotland Yard Detective Mike Neville. Mike, thank you so much for joining me. I remember you once saying to me on Britain's Newsroom, you said, Bev, I'm an arrestosaurus. In other words, you're a bit of a dinosaur, you like to arrest people. But Mike, we've just hurtled into the future, and apparently we're now living in dystopian times. Do you find it frightening, or do you quite like it, Mike?
Well, I think there's a balance to be had, and we've got to be realistic about the figures here, because some of the police chiefs are portraying this as a sort of silver bullet that's going to solve all crimes. But when I looked at the Croydon figures, they were talking about 240 arrests. But when I looked at the dates, it was like over 24 months. So that's like 10 arrests a month. Now, when I was a young PC, that's what I was expected to get. That's just one officer.
Yeah.
Well, so all these things, if we can make people safer because, we're going to cast catch child molesters, terrorists, rapists, robbers, thieves, then that's a good thing. What we don't want to happen is like the police use of CCTV. When CCTV was brought in, it was targeting crime. And then, of course, the councils found out they could make a fortune by targeting motorists and catching you, for parking in the wrong place. So you know that, and the public will know that when you get robbed or attacked, the CCTV cameras, for whatever reason, are not recording. But if you park your car in the wrong place or go through a yellow box junction in the wrong way, it will catch you. So the technology is good, but the police don't use it effectively, in my view. 10 or 12 years ago, I had the world's first conviction for pattern recognition, because if people hide their faces, you can still see like a distinctive, pattern on their, on their clothes, which is still not being used. So, yes, these are good things as long as they're controlled properly and they're targeted against the right types of crime.
Mike, when you were on with me last time, the interview came to an end and you told me a phrase that I'd not heard before, which is superfacial recognisers, which are people. Just tell me who they are.
Well, we know a very small percentage of the population are born with a superior ability to recognise faces. And this is how, if you remember the Novichok case in Salisbury, where the two Russians came across, they were found on video, not by facial recognition machines. They were found by humans who watched thousands of hours. What's like a good police force like Hertfordshire doing? They're combining their human super recognisers with the facial recognition to make sure it identifies people. But my experience is in the Metropolitan Police, I was identifying about 60% of criminals caught on camera committing, all sorts of crime, whereas the facial recognition machine could only ever recognise about 10%, because it really relies on really high quality images. If you imagine at the airport, when you go through the e-gates, you've got to look at it, it's got to be high quality, the lighting's got to be right. Whereas people have an ability to recognise people for different reasons. They can see, you could recognise your relatives by the back of their head, possibly. So the police are not making use of the skills that their own people have, and then combining it with the facial recognition. This is what the academics tell the police, but the police always seem to know better and don't use machines in the right way. There's a real belief that they're the silver bullet, they can just achieve everything without having people and processes.
And surely, Mike, all the wrong-uns will just walk down the road in a balaclava or a mask, which is really intimidating. There's too many of those anyway. Since COVID, people forgot that you don't have to cover your face up all the time. And particularly teenagers in London, they just love these black balaclavas. I can't bear them, these half-face masks. That is all we will lead to. If we've got facial recognition cameras on every lamppost, people will just cover up their faces. I don't want to live in that world, Mike Neville.
No, not at all. And what you find as well is when they say they've made all these arrests, having spoken to officers engaged in it, many of the arrests actually come through people trying to dodge the facial recognition machine. So they'll see the van there and they'll sort of veer off, and the officers who are stood there just do good policing and think, well, why is that guy not walk by us? So it's not often the camera that creates the arrest. It's the fact that some guy's trying to get round it and do it. But what we know with humans as well, and Professor Josh Davis is the academic expert from Greenwich University. He did experiments where people wore dark glasses so you couldn't see their eyes, or they wore a balaclava so you could just see their eyes, and humans could still spot them by that means. So there's all manner of things the police could do at the moment after the event. So people don't like this live facial recognition because it's scanning everybody. What most people don't mind is if the police have captured an image of somebody committing a robbery, a rape, a burglary, whatever, going through and seeing, they can identify that. And that's where you can combine facial recognition and human super recognisers. Because at the moment, we've spent billions of pounds on CCTV, and the police identify about 7 or 8% of the people captured, and that's completely unacceptable.
That is unacceptable. Let's bring in Adam Brooks, a knife campaigner. Adam, of course, when you're not running your pub or being brilliant on GB News, you also do a lot of campaigning, not only against knife crime, but also pro-civil liberties, and you work with the Together Gang and Alan Miller. So I know you like me, are probably a little conflicted on this. We want less crime on our streets, but this is not the solution.
No, this is Big Brother watch. You know, they're watching you everywhere you go. And again, I said it on the last segment, we've got the most authoritarian government of our lifetime. I do not trust them not to abuse that. Now, again, I want crime to be reduced. Knife crime, you know, it's an epidemic in London, and so many black lives are being lost. It's black on black a lot of the time. I think it was 53% of knife crime in London is perpetrated by black males, yet they're less than 10% of the population. But what an interesting thing here, Croydon is only about 40% white, Bev, and the racial disparities on the error rates for facial recognition are off the charts. I think you get 0.04% error rates for a white person. Yet black people, 5.5% error rates. It goes up to 9.9% with black women. Now, we have Sadiq Khan that doesn't want, he wanted to get rid of stop and search because apparently it's racist, but he wants to push this that could be really racist and really get a lot of black people in trouble when they've done nothing wrong. So there's so much hypocrisy and there's so much error rates here that I can't see how this is a good thing. Your last guest said hardly anyone has been arrested for it. They're massaging the figures. It was over a long period of time. So we could lose our liberties for technology that's not going to make much difference. You know, let's get mandatory 5-year sentencing for knife crime.
Yeah, let's sort out these kids at school so that they're not all going out and stabbing each other. We won't need all these cameras. Adam Brooks, thank you so much. In fact, there's a court case coming up of a black man that was mistakenly identified on one of these facial recognition cameras. It's actually been taken to court with Big Brother and that Big Brother watch, and they're going to be that's going to be in court in the next couple of weeks. That will be interesting to see. It's a real test case in this area. Thanks, Adam. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live, Brooklyn Beckham. He's launched a nuclear attack on his controlling parents, is what he says. Let's discuss that in just a minute. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're
the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. Thank you for your messages coming in. I will get to them when I can. I've just been reading them. But spoilt brat news now, because in a series of explosive social media posts, Beckham has accused his parents of trying to control him, of leaking negative stories about him to the press. And he also went as far as to say that they tried to ruin his marriage. These are really upsetting revelations, I think. And the eldest Beckham son said, "My mum hijacked my first dance with my wife, which had been planned weeks in advance, to a romantic song. She danced very inappropriately on me in front of everyone. I've never felt more uncomfortable or humiliated in my entire life." That was an intake of breath from Laurie Watkins, who's just heard that for the first time. Brooklyn went on to say, "For my entire life, my parents have controlled narratives in the press about our family. The performative social media posts, family events and inauthentic relationships have been a fixture of the life I was born into." Brooklyn has been embroiled, of course, in vicious row with his parents since his marriage to the American heiress Nicola Peltz. So let's talk now to royal and entertainment journalist Kinsey Schofield about this. Kinsey, I feel uncomfortable doing this story because at the heart of this, even though they are public figures, is a family and two parents tonight who will be devastated that Brooklyn has made this so public. What do they do now, Kinsey? Do they come out and dispute these claims, or do they just go quiet and just hope that at some point their relationship can be reconciled? It's really dark.
It is. I mean, there is a cultural expectation still deeply ingrained that we respect our elders, even while acknowledging that no parent is perfect. As the oldest child, Brooklyn is, likely navigating the most complicated emotional terrain firstborns often do, but taking private family grievances public and doing so at a scale that borders on humiliation is more likely to alienate audiences than earn sympathy. The discipline of never complain, never explain exists for a reason, as does the intelligence behind his parents' long-standing control of their narrative. Publicly lashing out at the people who created his platform reflects neither.
And of course, he's had this wonderful life. I'm not surprised he feels quite entitled, because that's what comes out of this statement for me. And I just wonder, Kinsey, whether his parents have tried to do everything for him. He had this very famous name, Brooklyn Beckham. Everybody knew where he was conceived. Before that boy was even born, he had the eyes of the world on him, didn't he? And it's obviously been very difficult for them to manage it. Just tell us about this strange detail that's enclosed in this statement, though, about the wedding dress and what that might tell us about the family.
Well, the story has been so far. We've always heard this rumor that Nicola, insulted Victoria somehow by wearing a different designer's dress. And he's trying to set the record straight, similar to Harry and Meghan, wedding drama, trying to set the record straight, saying at the 11th hour, his mother, the designer, abandoned the dress and Nicola was forced to go find an alternative. So, the Oprah Winfrey interview countdown is on. This is very much Harry and Meghan territory. And I think that Nicola and Brooklyn will live to regret it.
Do you think they will do the big sit-down expose with Oprah?
I think that they will, because they are limited when it comes to skills. And the feedback online is this guy's never worked a real job in his life. He's not worked a real day in his life. I think that they will be desperate to be liked, and perhaps he'll be desperate to contribute in some way to their family. But her family is loaded. So I think financially they are comfortable for the long haul.
I'm not being funny, but what does she do? Does she do anything? Is she an actress or something, Nicola Peltz?
She's an actress and a model and an influencer. And according to page 6, Brooklyn and Nicola, their boiling point was reading things that weren't true. And to that, I'd say, get a real job. You know, you're much more less likely to sit and Google yourself if you're busy and you're working a full day.
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes my skin crawl. And you say there are parallels, aren't there, between Harry and Meghan? A lot of privilege and perhaps nobody around them to tell them, come on, you have so much in life. Just live a quiet life of dignity if that's what you want.
I agree. And two things can be true. Brooklyn can expect more emotionally from his parents, and the way he expresses that publicly can be toxic. So I think you can read these stories and you can read what he said and go, I bet that's true. But you can also agree that this was the inappropriate way to pursue this.
Yeah, and it will be fascinating to see what they do next. Kinsey, thank you so much for joining me from Hollywood. Kinsey Schofield there. Let me just get a quick response from my panel. Spoilt brat or hard done by Brooklyn Beckham? Oh, apparently I've got to go for a break. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. See you in a minute.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening, very good morning to you if you're in the UK, live from Washington DC. This is GB News with the stories that are shaping Britain and America.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. A trade war is in no one's interest.
The Prime Minister talking tough on Greenland, but guess what? President Trump is talking tougher. When asked if he would use force to acquire the country today, he said no comment. Now picture this. Tony Blair at one end of the table, Vladimir Putin at the other. Well, that's what Trump's Board of Peace to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza might look like. They've both been invited. And one of the most famous families in the world have had a very public fallout. And for once, it is not Prince Harry, it's Brooklyn Beckham, who has attacked his parents, David and Victoria, online tonight. He's accused them of briefing against him to the newspapers, and he claims that his Spice Girl mum ruined his first dance with his wife at their wedding. I bet there are two sides to that story. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks in this hour. And keep your comments coming this evening, gbnews.com/your say. But back to our top story of the day here in Washington. President Trump has said that he is 100% committed to hitting the UK and European allies with tariffs in protest at their opposition to his plan to control Greenland. Well, today the president refused to rule out using the military to seize the Danish territory. When asked by CBS if he would use force to seize Greenland, he said no comment. Now, this is after Sir Keir Starmer held an emergency press conference this morning in the UK responding to Trump's tariffs threat. Here he is.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance. Such measures hurt British workers, British businesses, and the British economy. And that is why I've been so clear on this issue. A trade war is in no one's interest. And my job is always to act in the UK's national interest.
Well, what did you think of the tone of that speech this morning from Keir Starmer? Do you think the president is paying any attention to what he says? Is the president going to be paying attention to people like this? Two MPs in the House of Commons earlier today who made some suggestions of how to deal with him.
He is thin-skinned, he has an ego, and he doesn't like to be embarrassed. Should the state visit go ahead this year? Should football teams play in American stadia for the World Cup? These are things which would embarrass the president at home. We now need to fight fire with fire.
We're not dealing with a rational man. He responds only to shiny baubles, as we've seen with the incredible saga of the Nobel Peace Prize. So I want to agree with the Right Honourable Member for North Dorset and ask the government if they will consider removing the King's visit to the United States and also a boycott of the World Cup to show Donald Trump that the only thing he responds to is his own pride.
I find it absolutely terrifying that our country is in the hands of people like that. That was the Conservative MP Simon Hoare first, and then secondly we saw Luke Taylor there from, surprise, surprise, the Liberal Democrats. Well, joining me in the studio is retired Navy SEAL and Chief Talent Officer of Overwatch Mission Critical, Mike Sorelli. Now, Mike, first of all, I want to apologise on behalf of the idiots that run our country there, because they don't understand. That's all I can conclude. They do not understand what President Trump is trying to do here when he says he wants to take control of Greenland. Will you just explain to them, in case they're watching, why it might be in international interest to do what he's asking?
Well, Bev, thanks for having me on. You don't have to apologize for politicians around the globe. The globe, we understand who they are and they're bought and paid for. So Greenland, and I know the rhetoric has been heated from Trump. Are we going to invade Greenland? No. Are we looking at a strategic partnership, not a sovereignty transfer? Yes. The strategic importance of Greenland, it is a critical vulnerability to the United States, the Arctic, and that is a new battleground. If you look at the Russian Northern Fleet, they've built up quite a fleet that not only threatens the Arctic, but the Atlantic through the GI-UK gap, which is the Greenland-Iceland-UK gap, which is a maritime choke point for their submarines coming into the North Atlantic and then the broader Atlantic. Beyond that, think of surveillance, monitoring, and assessment, the need for advanced radar systems that give us early warning on ICBM launches from Russia.
Is that intercontinental ballistic missiles?
It is. Thank you very much. And there's something called the Greater Circle routes. So if you look at any ICBM launches from Russia, they would actually cross the Atlantic into the United States. So that's the critical nature of Greenland. This is, and hopefully in Davos, we have that coming up with the World Economic Forum annual meeting, that the rhetoric will tone down. They will see that NATO as a partnership needs to build up Greenland collectively for both the security of North America as well as our UK and EU partners. So, this is Trump. Much like he's forced NATO to increase their GDP spend on defense, this is his very Trump-like way of holding our partners accountable to the threats that are emerging.
Is this one of those occasions, though, where his bombast, which can be very powerful, is encouraging people to stop listening? Because we've just seen there from members of our elected government in the UK and our elected parliament in the UK, even though there's people who are in opposition, they are just hearing the style of his delivery. They're not stopping to consider what it is that he's trying to do, because it's in their interests as well.
It is. Sometimes he has to convince them, but it's not just your UK partners. Half of America has an allergic reaction every time Trump says something. You've got to hand it to him. Success after success with taking out Iranian nuclear facilities, with the capture of Maduro. He is on a roll. He's ended 9 wars in his presidencies. The guy he's got a vision. He's seeing the battlefield, and he's changing the chess players on the global chessboard. So again, he sees that, well, right now Russia is the pacing threat. China is a long-term threat to the Arctic. They've already been trying to get in with economic deals with Greenland. And then additionally, the thing we're not considering is, with China having a lock on rare earth, Greenland is mineral-rich, infrastructure poor. Beyond rare earth, minerals, hydrocarbons, and even uranium. Greenland is of importance to us and NATO.
And my understanding is that America and the UK and European countries have been caught napping in that issue. So Russia and China have been around the African countries, and they have bought up the rights to their rare earth minerals. And what do we need them for? Basically all the infrastructure of the future: solar panels, wind turbines, batteries for electric cars. How has the West sat back whilst China and Russia have got such a run on that incredibly important source of materials?
Here's my opinion. The global war on terror for 20 years distracted us. That was the war against terrorism was the attraction. That was the immediate fight in front of us. While we were doing that, China was bought and paid for Africa. But what's interesting and accelerates this is with the removal of Russia and China from the Western Hemisphere, Venezuela, now it is a rat race to take over the Arctic, which again is mineral rich, which as the ice caps melt, the cost of distance for maritime travel reduces. And that's why it's so important. And with the ice caps, again, as they continue to melt, China will now use those trade routes as well as those military subsurface routes to get access to the Atlantic at ease.
And we keep hearing the language around this issue, I think, is incredibly misleading. The idea that he would invade Greenland. I made the mistake of using that phrase myself when we first started talking about this a couple of weeks ago, because it all just, we don't know what the terminology is around this. And I think, as you just said then, this is about a collaboration with Greenland rather than a capture, isn't it? Why is he not communicating?
A collaboration with our NATO partners.
With the NATO
UK
partners.
and NATO partners, 100%. Again, we call it Trumpism. It's just his style. But if you look at NATO sent roughly about 30 troops in response to this to prepare for a U.S. invasion. That is nothing but performative with no substance at all. I mean, 30 troops, come on. Let's see what comes out of Davos at the World Economic Forum meeting. And let's see if the rhetoric tones down, if we're ready to partner, if we're ready to make major investments in Greenland and make that a military and mineral-rich oil and gas infrastructure state for the good of not only the Greenlanders, who have the right to self-determine and self-govern, but for the good of the NATO alliance.
Because my understanding is that the Greenlanders will have to have a referendum on this. It would have to be voted for the majority. And on recent polling, 85% of Greenlanders don't want to be under the control of America. They're very happy with Danish rule. How does Trump circumnavigate that particularly pesky democratic issue?
So that is an obstacle to the U.S. taking control of Greenland. What I would say is seek a strategic partnership and alliance, not a sovereignty transfer. I think that's not in the cards. But again, Trump will push his NATO partners to realize the threat coming out of the north that impacts us all. So again, Davos is going to be a key in his delivery at his address at Davos is going to tell us how this is going to play out over the next few weeks or months.
Yeah. He's threatened these tariffs within 2 weeks. Do you think he'll end up executing these tariffs against these NATO partners, these 8 European countries? Italy isn't one of them, funnily enough. He quite likes Georgia Meloni. But we're in there, the UK are in there. Do you think he'll end up doing that?
Neither Poland as well. You know, with Trump, you never can tell. And I know those tariffs go up on, I believe, June 1. So, again, they could be threats to force the hand of the NATO partners to come to the table and pay serious attention to Greenland. But, again, that's the wild card we have in our president, is the world leaders never know. And, you know, even with Iran. People didn't think he was going to strike Iran, and then all of a sudden we wake up on a Saturday and Iran was struck. So that's a superpower for Trump that you never tell what he's going to do.
Are you excited about Davos?
I am. I'm going to be watching closely not only his address, but the Chinese finance minister. It definitely is a very interesting world, and the geopolitics are changing at a rate we've probably never seen in our lifetimes.
Let me just ask you one very quick question. Sometimes with Trump, there's a lot of noise made about something because he doesn't want you to look over there. So he makes a bit of a noise over in that direction. What might he be distracting us from at the moment? I keep hearing rumours about Cuba, Mike.
I've heard the same rumours. And again, this is an expert, the art of the sale is he'll keep you distracted looking elsewhere while we deal with Cuba. I think Cuba, with the loss of Maduro in Venezuela, which was a key component to their economic survivability, I think Cuba will take care of itself in time. And sometimes, you know, America, we are a young nation. We lack tactical patience or strategic patience sometimes. And sometimes you just got to let things play out. And I think Cuba is one of those countries that will take care of itself.
OK, fantastic. Fascinating, Mike. Mike Sorelli, thank you so much.
Thank you.
What a pleasure. Right, moving on. Prince Harry has launched his latest courtroom battle against the publisher of the Daily Mail this time. Major privacy trial got underway in London. Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker was there for GB News.
Well, I've been in a courtroom all day with a very stern-looking but a very composed Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. He is one of 7 claimants who are collectively suing the publisher of the Mail and the Mail on Sunday for alleged unlawful information gathering. That's Associated Newspapers. They deny all the allegations against them, and in fact a spokesperson for them tell me that all the claims are preposterous and without foundation. But inside the courtroom we have the actresses Sadie Frost, we have Liz Hurley and her son Damien, and we also have the former Liberal Democrat Minister Sir Simon Hughes. All of them were meticulously taking notes, apart from perhaps Prince Harry. He was looking through the documents of evidence and meticulously following what his barrister David Sherborne KC was saying in terms of the evidence document. Prince Harry alleges that unlawful information gathering took place not at the Daily Mail, but by the use of private investigators working on behalf of the Daily Mail to write intrusive and unlawful articles published between 2001 and 2013. Well, this is only the start of a 9-week trial in Harry and others' cases against Associated Newspapers Limited. Harry will be back in court tomorrow, we suspect, alongside some other celebrities suing the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday. And as I said, this is expected to last 9 weeks, and Harry is due to give evidence himself in the dock later this week.
Brilliant. Cameron Walker there for us. So from board of Harry to the board of peace. Donald Trump has invited Vladimir Putin to be on that committee, the board of peace. It's going to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza. This is according to the Kremlin. 60 countries have been offered to join the Trump-chaired committee, which also includes, of course, Sir Tony Blair, the former British Prime Minister, and Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State you're looking at on your picture there. Each country is going to be asked to pay $1 billion. That's about £800 million for permanent membership if they want to secure their spot in this nascent organisation. A Kremlin spokesman told reporters at a press briefing today they're reviewing the invitation and hoping to get more details from the American side. Well, let's talk now to author and columnist for the Daily Mail, Bill Ganasty, who joins me now. Bill, I'm rather fascinated by this Board of Peace. I can't lie. I do find it fairly entertaining, the idea that Trump's getting together what could be a rival to NATO, and he's saying you've got to pay £1 billion. He's treating it like a private members club, Bill. Is this appropriate behaviour, or could it actually do some good?
This is great news, actually. This is the way to get rid of United Nations. This is the way to get going the business. You know, you have to build prosperity around the world. And to build the prosperity, you have to have the right structure. And this is a structure. He cannot build prosperity. He's fixing the US. Now he has to fix the world, President. And he has to do it with few people who can help him. For instance, as you know, Turkey is one of them who said, Erdogan said, the world is bigger than 5. So everybody knows that UN cannot be fixed. So to build something new in its place is the right thing to do. Look, behind me is Davos. We are there. And I just came within 24 hours. I heard enough. I wanted to raise my hand in this panel, in this whatever it was, lunch, dinner, wanted to raise. Daphne pulled my hand down because you cannot listen nonsense. And these are all globalism talking here. And what are they talking about? Nothing that we are talking about. That's what, why UK is abstaining at this time from that, why they are reluctant, because they are part of this group here behind me, Davos. And it doesn't make sense. I'm conservative. I'm trying to see a common sense. Maybe 20 people talk, maybe 15. None of them made sense. I wished one. You have to make sense. Then afterwards, you know what happened? I pulled aside one person who used to be a minister and, commander-in-chief, and certainly on the globalist side. When I start talking like this, that I talk, my book and the way I talk, truth, and he says, we cannot talk truth. We are afraid of talking the truth. And all these 15, 20 people, none of them had the guts to talk the truth. They were talking to an audience that is not in the room. So that's why Daphne stopped me talking, because I would have said they will have kicked me out most likely, or they will have loved me, and we will altogether were going to be kicked out of the Davos altogether because they clapped on me. But the point is, yes, there has to be a new structure. 60 countries already approved or, wanted to go in. Watch. That country, that number is going to be 150 tomorrow out of 193 so quickly. Why? Because when Turkey calls the General Assembly for anything, it's able to bring 150 countries with a common sense. Now, if Trump has common sense and yes, should.
I was going to say the reason I'm smiling is because it's such music to my ears to hear you say that Davos is still lost in its own little echo chamber of deceit.
Exactly.
How I
what
would see
you're saying.
It. But I love the idea that
yes, a congresswoman got up. Congresswoman said, we cannot handle each other, talk to each other, and whatever. She talked about problems. Then at the end she said, I've been in Congress in 9 terms. Well, if you're 9 terms in the representing California in the US Congress, and we have a problem in California, as you know, governor is a Democrat, and both houses are in the hands of Democrats. and since 92, California is losing economically, all going down, 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 and you are 9 terms there, and who's the problem? Do you think you should have solved it in this 9 terms, something? And if you couldn't solve it, why are you there for 9 terms? So in other words, all these people has to be replaced. Well, let me tell you one simple thing. U.S. capital has to go out. Capital has to go out to other locations that can use these monies, these investments, like doing better things in Syria or Turkey or other countries where it could be any place, it could be Africa, and U.S. has this capital. And there are corporations who can do these things. Only U.S. corporations can do this because today only U.S. corporations are acceptable. They are waiting for those corporations. They're not waiting for Germans, for French, for Russians, for Chinese to come. Chinese are going without invitation, and they're filling the vacuum. They're waiting for America, and Donald Trump knows that. Donald Trump knows that. He brought the money. He brought tons of money to America, so they are building factories, and we're going to see the results in 4 or 5 years. So he did America first. Now he has to do the world first, and the world first cannot be done with an old, incapacitated UN. It has to be a new structure. You cannot buy an old pizzeria and try to fix it. You buy a new one and start from the new.
And that's what that Board of Peace may well be. Bill, fascinating insight. I wish you all the best. Keep causing mischief, won't you, in Davos this week? I love the sound of it. Bill Ganasty there, author and columnist for the Daily Mail. Thank you so much. Right, panel, what do you make of that? Thomas, Corbett, Dylan. Nothing's changed in Davos. I was really hoping they might have seen the light this year. They might have realised that corporatism, globalism is deeply unpopular across the world. We know their game. We understand what they're up to now. Clearly not. Yeah, I mean, they're not known for necessarily changing course when the people go against them. So I wasn't hoping that they'd change. They're going to do what they always do. But this, this is basically like a new UN Council. I think this is kind of interesting. But notably, the UK were not invited to it. Everyone said, well, Tony Blair was invited, but the UK government is not invited. Keir Starmer is not invited. And even if they were, I don't think they would ever think about paying the $1 million fee, $1 billion fee. So that once again is the UK being left out, but also so was France, so was Germany. Meanwhile, North Korea are invited, Russia's invited. So this is interesting. Trump is certainly upsetting the global order. Yeah, which is a good thing, Laurie Watkins.
I cannot believe it is extraordinary that I am sitting here with 2 Europeans that are in favor of essentially the degradation of the UN and letting everything go.
I wasn't in favour of it. I just said it was quite interesting. I am. I'm very much in favour. I think the UN is a terrible organisation.
And NATO. Well, excuse me. I didn't mean. I misspoke. NATO. I can't believe that you would let NATO go by being a part of this, which I think it's going to be a big grift. Even Israel has come out and said, I don't agree with the executives and these people that you even have on this board. I'm talking to multiple countries in the Middle East right now, and they are not in favor of this. They are waiting to see who joins. They're waiting to see what happens. But the erosion of NATO, especially when he's trying to go after Greenland at the same time, I just say to the people of Great Britain, wait till you're next. Wait till Donald Trump sets his eyes and has his sights on your country. How would you think about all this? Listen, how would you think about all this right now? We love that. Oh, I think it's in my national security interest that I want to take over your country. How would you feel then? That's what we're talking about here. This man, he's out of control.
Let me just, Adam Brooks, let me bring you in, because the thing is, we know that repeatedly Trump doesn't poll terribly well in the UK. But if you said to people in the UK, here we go, I've got this guy lined up. He's going to cure your illegal migration problem. He's going to reduce your taxes. He's going to reduce your crime. He's going to put more police. He's going to put the National Guard on the streets.
Get rid of NATO.
And actually, he's going to detonate, figuratively, hopefully not literally, the UN and all of those non-governmental organisations that are sat around in Davos in a massive grift. Do you want that? What would you say, Adam?
I think the majority of people would take that tomorrow. Again, I don't like Trump's rhetoric, but I can see what he's doing. Let's remember the UN had Hezbollah and Hamas operatives amongst its ranks. I believe it is a very dishonest and corrupt organisation. I do not trust the UN at all. But yeah, look, Trump, he's smashing the globalist agenda around the world, and they're panicking. Let's remember, the coalition of the willies, as I call them, undermined him really with Ukraine. I think they tried to mug America off a little bit with their meetings and trying to claim credit for things in Ukraine. I think it's really put his back up. Again, I'm not backing a foreign power against Britain. Britain is the country I live in, and it will always be put first. But I think if you can shake our leaders into a different direction or a different rhetoric on a lot of the things that they do and they say, then it's a good thing.
Let me ask you, Laurie, when President Trump stands on stage in Davos on Wednesday, like he did at the UN, like he did at UNGA in New York in November, October time, what do you want him to say? What would you, as somebody that doesn't like him and doesn't like his policies or his government, what would make your heart sing if he stood up on stage on Wednesday to the
if he'd come out and reverse every single thing that he's done since he got in office 1 year ago tomorrow? How about that? What he's doing to the global order is terrifying to me as an American, and I know it is to millions of people around the world that are seeing everything that he is just taking like a sledgehammer to everything. And some of these panelists here, and you've made comments that, oh, this seems like it'll be good over here, it'll be good here. He's taking, you know, a hammer to the whole system, and this is good. Without a plan, this is not a good idea. And he doesn't have a plan. And he's a grifter who wants to collect billions of dollars. And he says, did you look at the devil in the details? That he will be for life in charge of this entire program.
The $1 billion buys you lifetime membership for your country.
Venezuela. Now the Qataris are going to collect the revenue and the money, and only Donald Trump, he can say what happens to that. I mean, this is. Let me just ask you this. This is terrifying, and you all should be terrified about this.
What is it about the existing world order which has served countries well? Then, because if you want everything to remain, the status quo to remain, you must be very happy with the quality of life that people have.
That we haven't had World War III. That's why, right? That's what NATO was formed after World War II, right? Is no one agreeing with me? So we haven't had World War III. So that's a huge part, I believe, 9 wars. That has to do with NATO and working with our allies to make sure that we are all secure. For peace. He's for peace, right?
It's for peace, and sometimes peace comes out of strength. And I believe that a deterrent stops wars happening.
And I think bullying, that's the motto. That's the aggressive kind of nature now, right? I personally think
Donald Trump being strong will stop World War III.
Even though constitutionally you're not able to do that.
Go on, Adam.
Look, if Donald Trump wants to stop World War III, he's got to set boundaries and he's got to flex his muscles. America are our greatest ally, and I'm pleased with that. And I think if he's flexing his muscles around the world, China is getting stronger. Russia, well, you know, they're bogged down in Ukraine, but they could mount an attack down the line. I think if they know Donald Trump means business, that might deter them. One thing I will say, though, is how he's trusting Tony Blair, I do not know. The Middle East is in tatters because of men like Tony Blair. And we are getting migrants coming to this country en masse because of men like Tony Blair. So I don't see, unless he's trying to keep his enemies close and monitor them, I don't know. But I think his judgment on Tony Blair is wrong.
That's my suspicion. It's not even blokes like Tony Blair. It's literally Tony Blair is why the Middle East was such a problem that so many immigrants still arrive in the UK and mainland Europe today. Thomas, what did you think about Tony Blair being on that board of peace?
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. I don't think the president really knows. I think he just wants, you know, a British person to be involved because, you know, he likes the UK. But I do think it's interesting what Laurie's saying, because I think the US has not been affected as much as Europe has by these global institutions, by these NGOs, by, you know, the flooding of Europe by immigrants from all across the world. It's not really affected the Americans as much. You know, the American economy is very strong. The UK is in a terrible situation, and a lot of that can be pointed at some of these globalist institutions. So yes, we're cheering for the end of this. The Americans aren't so much, because they've actually done pretty well out of it. But I think the UK is ready for a new world order.
I heard a rumour today that he may be also about to announce coming out of the World Health Organization for good.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Good.
And that would be cause for celebration, Laurie?
To pull out of the World Health Organization? Yeah. Are you kidding me? I can't.
They showed how corrupt they were during COVID, Bev.
I think it's a great thing. I think it's a
Goodness gracious.
I think it's a great thing. I think it's an absolute gravy train for everybody involved. I think they've been given way too much powers in the event of another pandemic, which they would be at authority to tell us we're in one. And Bill Gates, you know, who's the second biggest funder of the World Health Organization next to America? Bill Gates. That is corruption wrought real, in my personal opinion. It's going to be a week of absolute fireworks while people try to work out what Donald Trump is doing in Davos this week. I'm here for it. I've got the popcorn ready for Wednesday. Laurie, I feel like I should have brought you a glass of wine this evening. It's all a little bit difficult, this, isn't it? But anyway, listen, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. We've only got half an hour left to go. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
So I think it's the responsible thing to do to consult on all the different options available, from a ban on social media for the under-16s to things like curfews overnight to help kids with their sleep.
Liz Kendall there, talking about the fact that we might be about to see an Australia-style social media ban for under-16s. Minister's going to look at restricting addictive app features as part of a consultation on curbing harmful online activity. Do you agree with that? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Generally, things a bit brighter out there today. Still a bit of mist and fog around and quite a bit of cloud, but many areas will be dry. The main exception to that in the far southwest. West Wales, southwest England, already seeing some outbreaks of rain, and the wind's really picking up here, getting very gusty indeed. There is a Met Office yellow warning in place, 40, 50 mile an hour gusts, perhaps even 60 to 65 over hills. We'll see some of that wet and windy weather extending across Northern Ireland. One or two showers in eastern England, but a good part of England and Scotland will stay dry. As I mentioned, a bit brighter than yesterday. Temperatures about average, but feeling a lot colder with the wind and the rain in the southwest. A pretty grim end to the day for much of Wales and southwest England. Some heavy bursts of rain and still very lively gusts. Further east, generally still dry and fine at this stage, but the rain will be creeping its way towards the Midlands during the evening rush hour. At the same time, it should start to ease a little bit in Northern Ireland. We'll see some outbreaks of rain just filtering into southwest Scotland. A few showers across the Northern Isles perhaps, but a good part of Scotland also dry through this evening's rush hour. Now, the breeze will be picking up, coming in from the North Sea. That's going to be a feature of the weather over the next few days. The rain will extend, as I mentioned, across the Midlands, then into parts of northern England and up across Scotland, with a few showers following on behind. With enough wind, that'll help to stop any mist and fog forming, except maybe over the higher routes, and help to keep the temperatures up above freezing as well. For tomorrow, though, many places will see outbreaks of rain. We start pretty wet across a good part of Scotland, and there's those winds feeding in the heavy rain here. That could cause some issues over the next few days. The second half of the week looks very wet, so we have another Met Office yellow warning in place, and then a zone of wet weather marches northwards across all other areas. So there'll be a spell of rain for all of us at some point tomorrow, getting quite windy in places as well. Temperatures, again, close to average, 7 to 10 Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. If you've just tuned in, you've missed some brilliant debates so far this evening. Let's have a look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers over in the UK. The Metro. They're running with a prize idiot. Land grab row shakes NATO alliance. Laurie Watkins very much enjoying that one. That is about Trump and Greenland, of course. And the I paper. British and US relationship at lowest ebb since the 1956 Suez crisis. They say intelligence sharing under threat in the biggest shake-up for 70 years. Telegraph are, of course, leading with that story on British teenagers facing a social media ban. This is something the Telegraph feels very strongly about, as do I. The Daily Mail, Brooklyn goes nuclear. They are leading on Brooklyn Beckham's statement against his parents. He's calling them controlling, and he says they put family brand above everything, saying that his mother humiliated him with an inappropriate first dance at his wedding. That is a nightmarish front page for the Beckham family. The Times are leading with, "I no longer think purely about peace," says Trump. That is in relation to a conversation he had with I think it was the President of Denmark. Was it the Prime Minister of Denmark? I think he said a conversation. I'll have to look into the detail of that. Just one sec. It was about the fact that he said he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, and therefore he is that's right, isn't it? Yeah, Laurie's. These have just landed. These stories. He's putting a thumbs up at me. The Guardian said Trump links Greenland threats to Nobel snub. That's the same story. That's right. I think he blames Denmark for not getting the Nobel Peace Prize, doesn't he? Wasn't it their decision whether to give it to him or not? Have I got that right? I'm not really up on my was it Norway?
Yeah, that he was mad about. Yeah.
Okay,
but he blames Denmark as well. So they
blames
had
everyone.
Birds of a feather is what his accusation
I see. The Daily Express are saying that defiant nurses stand united as the NHS faces a backlash for ignoring biological sex ruling. "We will never be silenced for telling the truth." Those are the nurses who won the court case over whether they should be forced to change in a room with a trans woman. And The Sun are also leading in that Brooklyn Beckham story, saying, "I'm done with my family, and my mum ruined my wedding. The only thing I would say is they have got 3 other children who don't hate them in the same way." And when that happens, you really do have to ask whether this is his issue, or maybe because he was their firstborn, they maybe got some things wrong. Right, guys, let's stick with that for a bit, shall we? Laurie, you wanted to have a chat about this particular story. Your thoughts when you see this?
So when it comes to people's personal lives, I do not participate in gossip like this. But in my opinion, since I'm here on the show, I'm being asked my opinion, so I will say that what I think is that was a very healthy note from Brooklyn, because he's trying to set a boundary that was clearly crossed many times by his parents, especially with accusations coming out again and again and again about your wife, that she is controlling, that she is a horrible person, etc., that she's the cause of the rift. I believe they have a child coming, because that's what he alluded to in his, I think that's what, our growing family and something like that. They're setting boundaries of, you're not going to be involved because of all of the harm that you've caused me and my wife and continue to do. And you had an entertainment reporter on from
Kinsey.
Yes, Kinsey from LA, and she said that she suspects that there's going to be an Oprah Winfrey tell-all, sit-down kind of similar to Harry and Meghan. I don't think that's going to happen at all. These are very private individuals, and I think this is exactly why they did it on Instagram, is because the level reached the point where they just couldn't take it anymore with all these false stories coming out about the two of them, especially his wife, and they wanted to put it to bed. And I don't think that they're going to do a media blitz. I don't think that they want to give any more oxygen to this. And while we were on break, I checked, X is already going crazy with these meme-type videos of a dance that almost looks like Dirty Dancing, and making jokes like this is the dance that Victoria did at the wedding. So I think this is going to, obviously in the UK, get a lot more oxygen than I think it deserves, but leave them alone. He came out with his statement, let it go, Britain.
That was almost frozen. You could have done that in song there, Laurie. But surely, if what he's saying, I want a quiet life, you do not write a very, very long post, which as journalists, Thomas, you're like, there's a story, there's a story, there's a story, the one about the wedding dress, the one about the dance. Where he has just given the press a year's worth of material, hasn't he?
Yeah, and this whole story, first of all, I'm very disappointed in The Sun. It looks like the Daily Telegraph have stolen their headline. They've said, end it like Beckham. I thought that's a Sun headline. They should have done something fun like that. But yeah, this whole story is kind of crazy. And I also think we have to remember, this is an interesting timing. This Victoria documentary just came out. I think she's probably the most popular she's ever been. Actually, ever. I think that this documentary showed her in a different light. Everyone seems to be loving her. David has just been made Sir David Beckham. They're kind of at their peak right now. and all of a sudden the Sun is dropping this into them. I think it's very strange. And yes, everyone's making jokes about this on social media. I've seen a video of Britney Spears dance with their knives, and everyone's saying, "Look, it's Victoria at the wedding." So it's being memed, but there is a family behind this, so I think it's kind of sad.
I have nothing but sympathy, actually, Adam, for all of them. I think Brooklyn Beckham has had a privileged but also a gilded cage of a life. He's probably struggled at school. He doesn't know who he is. He's tried to be a chef. He's tried to be a photographer. They've probably given him every single opportunity they could think of to help that poor boy, and he's got to the point where he's got absolutely no self-esteem now in his mid-20s, and I just think it's terribly sad. You know the family a bit, don't you, Adam?
Yeah, look, I'll give a different slant on this. I know Sandra Beckham, who is Brooklyn's nan, David's mum. She's such a lovely lady. She's friends with my mum as well. She's such a proud nan. She's proud of her kids, proud of her grandkids, and if ever you see sort of her Instagram, it's all family orientated. This must be tearing her apart. So I really feel sorry for her as the nan. And as a father myself, the thought of my son doing this and being upset with me, I would move the earth just to make things better. Even if I was wrong, I would go back, cap in hand and say, "Look, you're my son, life is too short, let's sort this out." So this is a bit of a plea to the Beckhams, if they are watching this or they see this. Life is too short. Please, as a father, it would end my life if my son didn't want to talk to me and was attacking me like this. David, I don't know what you've done or whatever, but go and make it right. Families, it's too short a life to fight. Please, sort it out.
There's this trend on social media, I don't know whether any of you are aware of this, of no contacting. It's a huge trend on Instagram and on TikTok, and it's being perpetuated by psychologists talking to teens and young people in their 20s and saying, your parents never treated you in the way that they should. They didn't give you the respect that you deserved. Look at how strict and controlling they've been with you. And unfortunately, you apply that logic over a generation that have always been taught to be the victims, actually, and not to take responsibility for their own lives too often. And you've got families that are falling apart all over the world. I don't think it's any exaggeration to say that. I don't think it's a coincidence as well that Brooklyn Beckham was one of the lockdown generation. He's what, 25 now, I think, isn't he? 25, 26. So he would have been that generation, those formative years where he had the rug pulled from underneath him. And there is something wrong with that generation. They've never quite found their feet. These are all the boys we've got in England, Adam, in the UK, who are these NEETs, not in education, employment or training. They're lost. They don't know who they are, and they're looking for somebody to blame all the time. Do you think, knowing what you do about the Beckham families, Adam, do you think they'll come out and say something in response?
I don't know. I don't know David and Victoria. As I say, my concern is for Sandra the nan, because I know how my mum would think. My mum and my kids are so close, so I know how that would tear my mum apart. So I'm just trying to put myself in that family at the moment. Obviously, they're world famous. But look, this entitled generation, they are perpetual victims a lot of the time. You've got to think he's never had a real job, I don't believe. He hasn't lived in the real world, and so they're not acting like real people. And look, it's a shame. I hope they've got counsellors, I hope they've got good friends around them, and that this can be ironed out.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Laurie, do you think that Nicola Peltz plays a role? Nicola Peltz, does she play a role in this? What would you do in that situation if you were the wife to Brooklyn Beckham?
Well, my answer is I have no flippin' idea, and neither do any of us that are speaking about this. It's none of our business. We're not there. We don't know the background to this. I know this is a hot topic, and we're talking about it here on GB News, and other news networks are talking about it. But as you said, leave them alone. Let them figure it out. Yes, I hope that this family stays together. I hope that they can have a reconciliation. But you set boundaries. People have to take accountability for whatever the one side is accusing the other side of doing, and let them deal with it in private. That's my recommendation.
Which I would completely agree with, except that he did put this massive statement on Instagram, Thomas.
To a very public family and parents that are airing everything out. And mark my word, you can call me wrong. I think this is the end of it from his side. Like, they don't want interviews. They put this out. They want to be left alone. But they felt that when push came to shove, they had to put something out to correct the record.
I haven't seen Victoria and David comment on this, though, unless there's something that I've missed. I think they've kept quite a dignified silence, haven't they?
I think this is also interesting that, you know, the Brooklyn, sorry, I forgot his name there, he's gone from being with his parents have worked really hard, and I think they still work really hard today. He's joined a family that are billionaires. His wife, she probably doesn't work hard, she's never worked hard. He now lives in a different life, and what he said in this comment is that they constantly want him to appear in social media posts and do this and do that, and he's kind of moved into a world where he doesn't need to do that anymore, so I think that might be part of it, of what he's pushing here. But yeah, it's a sad story. I did see Elton John seems to have taken a side. He commented on their post, their anniversary post. He's their godfather, Elton John, Brooklyn's godfather. So that was interesting. He's obviously taken a side in this. So yeah, it's getting
is he
spicy.
on Brooklyn's side?
He commented on Brooklyn's anniversary post of them and said, you know, sending my love to the happy couple or something, which, you know, is a public statement from Elton. So yeah, interesting timing.
Oh, honestly, you wouldn't want it, would you? You wouldn't want that lifestyle. For all of the riches and the fame, I just would not want it. Right, another thing that I may want or may not, I'm not sure about this, the government is going to consult on whether social media should be banned for under 16s in the UK. It said immediate action would give Ofsted the power to check policies on phone use when it inspects schools, and it is expected schools to be phone-free by default as a result of the announcement. Well, they should be anyway. A similar ban took place in Australia in December of last year, the first of its kind in the world. Other countries are said to be considering such a law. So 60 Labour MPs wrote to the Prime Minister about the issue, with the mother of murdered teenager Brianna Ghey also calling on the government to act. So let's have a little chat about this. One of the issues that was raised when we discussed this a couple of weeks ago is this idea that the Labour government, is giving the vote to 16-year-olds, but they're not allowed to have social media talk.
Yeah, I think this is, well, you know, I think I can't even imagine, you know, when I was at the tail end of school, we first started getting Twitter and Instagram and things. I can't imagine what it is like to be, like, even like a 10-year-old kid now, they have like Snapchat and these things. It is a different world that I think there isn't anyone on this channel that actually knows what it's like to grow up in that, because this is an entirely different generation. So I think, yes, this is a good thing. Normally, I'm not so much in favor of bans and things from the government, but I do think that the kids should not be on it. But enforcing it is another problem, because what we're seeing now is VPNs, you know, especially when the government are banning so many things. People are using VPNs for all sorts. So I'm sure they'll find a way around it. But yeah, no phones in school, that's for sure.
That should just be a given, though. Right. I mean, Laurie, what do you think about this? Are you in favour of banning it for under 16s?
Well, I don't know about a full ban, you know, countrywide, but here in the United States, I was looking down because I was trying to find specific data. There's been multiple studies done because there's counties across the United States that have banned phones in schools, and the percentage increase for the good in students' learning has skyrocketed because of this. They're able to focus, less bullying going on, less comparison between teens, etc., going on in schools, better dynamics socially, etc. It forces them to also speak and look up. The kids are having a hard time even being present and looking people in the eye and making eye contact. They go to have job interviews later after they graduate high school, and they can't even do the basics. All of this is tied to the phone, social media. I think in schools, phones should be absolutely banned. Yeah. Go put them in a safe place. If you need it after school or for an emergency, that's one thing. But to have your phone like readily accessible that you can get to while you're supposed to be learning, that to me is just outrageous.
Adam, what do you think? Because again, for us, this sits in that really difficult space, doesn't it, about what's right for kids, but also I want them to have access to a multitude of information sources that isn't, so they're not just shown the BBC.
Exactly that. Look, again, I'm part of the Together Declaration. I'm against state overreach, and I think a social media ban is complete state overreach. Parents should be more responsible in schools. I don't want my kids on their phones in schools, and I think schools need to be more strict on that. But look, when I was growing up, I would take my BMX and I would go miles away. You know, I'd tell my mum I'm in the next row, but I would be 2-3 miles away. But we would go out and have fun with our friends. Now, it's too dangerous out there for our kids because how they've allowed our streets to get, with knife crime and the crime spiralling, we don't want our kids on the streets. So if they're not on their phones and they're not in their streets, what are they doing? It's a really scary thing. But one thing I will say, that was a point I wanted to get. Labour want 16-year-olds to have the vote. So if you're a 15-year-old, 11 months and 30 days, no, you're not trusted to even look on the internet. 2 days later, they want you to vote. So they've got to make their minds up. Can kids be trusted or can they not? If they haven't got social media, we've got left-wing teachers that are going to fill their head with left-wing propaganda. You know, this is a Labour dream. This could give us generations of left-wingers. No, they need to see everything and be responsible, and the parents be responsible with their use as well.
Let me just tell you, I was just quickly looking something up there because I saw a news story today about comfort reading. Have you heard of this, guys, being here in America? Have you heard of comfort reading, Laurie?
No.
It's what we used to call reading.
You mean just reading a book?
Reading a book.
I started my morning that way this morning, yeah.
It's the best way to start the day.
10-page minimum a day.
Me too, I'm trying. But apparently now, Adam, in the US, it's not called reading, it's called comfort reading.
Ridiculous.
In other words, pick up a book. It's ridiculous, but they put a mental health tag on it, so now we're all probably gonna.
Yeah,
the kids are gonna do it.
When I was younger and my parents would go to a restaurant, there were no screens, there was no screen time. You know, if I was bored, what I'd do and sitting in the booth with my folks, I'd get out my little book and I guess I would comfort read, Bev, because I was a bookworm, still am. But
I'm a
to your
writer
point,
now.
You
I've
said,
got a
what are they going to do if
Substack,
they don't
so tell
go
them to read
on
my
social media,
Substack.
etc.? I was going to say, how about going to art class? How about playing a sport in school?
Yeah.
How about learning a musical instrument or being in the choir or learning to cook? How about all of these activities that don't involve video game playing, that don't involve being on your phone? But to hear you say, you know, they need to fact check against this liberal media that's filling, or liberal teachers that are filling their head with lies. So your alternative or solution is to give them a cell phone? Come on, that doesn't seem like a great
in moderation.
In moderation. Shouldn't be having phones in schools, period.
Well, you see, there's an organisation in the UK called Us For Them, run by a superb woman called Molly Kingsley, and they campaign against this issue. And their conclusion is that we shouldn't be banning social media. We should be emphasising the use of dumb phones for children. So there should actually be a phone that is made, and they do exist, but I think they're quite pricey, that literally has maps, maybe a banking app, the bus timetable, the train timetable, and you can text and call your mum and dad, and that's it. That I love the idea of, so that you are introducing the kids to technology in the way that it can be positive in many ways, but you're not addicting them to 7-second videos on TikTok. And I think what Molly and the guys at Us For Them are talking about is probably the sensible way forward. But because that is the case, they won't be listened to, of course, by the government. Let's just very quickly, new research suggesting that education is the biggest dividing line in British politics when it comes to immigration and support for right-wing parties. A study by the National Centre for Social Research found people without A-level qualifications are more than twice as likely to back the Conservatives or Reform compared to graduates. Now, I'm just seeing this for the first time, so bear with me while I try and work it out. Attitudes to immigration are also sharply split, with those less educated far more likely to oppose migrants staying in the UK illegally. The divide apparently is even starker than in the States, where factors like race, religion and gender play a much bigger role in shaping right-wing support. In Britain, researchers say that education matters more than anything else. Thomas, make sense of that for me.
Well, I mean, I think this is just a fancy way of them calling us stupid. You know, it seems to be they're saying that right-wing people are dumb, but I would argue that yes, maybe some of these left-wingers have these degrees and masters and all these bits of paper, but they're not necessarily that much smarter than us. So yes, fine, someone has funded a study into this and said, oh well, left-wingers have, I would argue you have to say left-wingers have more time in education, they've got more bits of paper that say technically they've got a degree, but I don't think they're smarter.
And it might also basically be that if you are less educated, perhaps you live in an area where mass migration is more of a problem to you on your street, which has changed beyond all recognition. Before we go, guys, I just want to show you some pictures from Cornwall in the south of England today. We had the Northern Lights. Just look at this. Thank you to Stuart Forsey for these pictures and my friend Sue who sent them to me. This was the Northern Lights in Cornwall. What a beautiful country we have. Aren't they incredible? This is #NoFilter.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Thomas, it's in Cornwall as well.
This is in Cornwall.
Normally in the north, isn't it? Wow.
Yep, this is in Cornwall in the south of the country.
I've never seen.
Does it make you miss
in Iceland or Alaska?
Yeah.
Either that or it's aliens. Well, apparently they're on the way, aren't they?
Yeah,
according to some of the newspaper reports here in the US. Does that make you miss the UK?
Of course, I miss the UK every day. I think it's the most beautiful country on earth. You know, if you look at the countryside of England, that's why it's so important that we save it. You know, there is no greater nation on earth, I think. I know the Americans would argue that they think this is the best, but you know, you have to have allegiance to your homeland.
Yeah.
So.
Adam Brooks, Laurie Watkins, Thomas Corbett-Dillon, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you at home. See you tomorrow night, midnight in the UK, 7 o'clock here. Bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News. Generally, things a bit brighter out there today. Still a bit of mist and fog around and quite a bit of cloud, but many areas will be dry. The main exception to that in the far southwest. West Wales, southwest England, already seeing some outbreaks of rain, and the wind's really picking up here, getting very gusty indeed. There is a Met Office yellow warning in place, 40, 50 mile an hour gusts, perhaps even 60 to 65 over hills. We'll see some of that wet and windy weather extending across Northern Ireland. 1 or 2 showers in eastern England, but a good part of England and Scotland will stay dry. As I mentioned, a bit brighter than yesterday. Temperatures about average, but feeling a lot colder with the wind and the rain in the southwest. A pretty grim end to the day for much of Wales and southwest England. Some heavy bursts of rain and still very lively gusts. Further east, generally still dry and fine at this stage, but the rain will be creeping its way towards the Midlands during the evening rush hour. At the same time, it should start to ease a little bit in Northern Ireland. We'll see some outbreaks of rain just filtering into southwest Scotland. A few showers across the Northern Isles perhaps, but a good part of Scotland also dry through this evening's rush hour. Now, the breeze will be picking up, coming in from the North Sea. That's going to be a feature of the weather over the next few days. The rain will extend, as I mentioned, across the Midlands, then into parts of northern England and up across Scotland, with a few showers following on behind. With enough wind, that'll help to stop any mist and fog forming, except maybe over the higher routes, and help to keep the temperatures up above freezing as well. For tomorrow, though, many places will see outbreaks of rain. We start pretty wet across a good part of Scotland, and there's those winds feeding in the heavy rain here. That could cause some issues over the next few days. The second half of the week looks very wet, so we have another Met Office yellow warning in place, and then a zone of wet weather marches northwards across all other areas. So there'll be a spell of rain for all of us at some point tomorrow, getting quite windy in places as well. Temperatures, again, close to average, 7 to 10 Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, we've got a very, very special show for you tonight.
To have a US president threatening tariffs, unless we agree that he can take over Greenland by some means, without, it seems, even getting the consent of the people of Greenland. I mean, this is a very hostile act. There's no other way I can put it.
Yes, as the transatlantic alliance faces its toughest test yet, we're bringing you Reform UK leader Nigel Farage's conversation with the US Speaker Mike Johnson as he visits the United Kingdom ahead of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Of course, that was America's Brexit, and also tonight.
We are cracking down on free speech. Is this deeply felt within the Republican Party?
It is. Speaker Johnson also weighs in on the huge brewing diplomatic row between the US and the UK over the erosion of freedom of speech and also the possibility of British governments banning Elon Musk's X. And finally,
this man has to be our next Prime Minister because our country needs reform.
Yes, as a second senior Tory defects to Reform UK, we'll be looking at what this means for both Reform and the future of the Conservative Party. That is an action-packed show, and that's all to come. But first is your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you. The top stories tonight at 7. Tariff threats are no way to treat allies. That is the warning from the Foreign Secretary tonight as tensions rise over Greenland. Yvette Cooper told MPs Greenland's future belongs to Greenlanders and Denmark alone, calling the threat from Donald Trump's tariffs completely wrong, unwarranted and counterproductive. She also said Arctic security must be handled through cooperation, not pressure, warning divisions only help adversaries. The comments come after Donald Trump said he would 100% impose sweeping tariffs unless a deal is reached, refusing to rule out force to seize the island. Here at home, meanwhile, Keir Starmer says Britain must not be forced to choose between the US and Europe.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance. Such measures hurt British workers, British businesses, and the British economy. And that is why I've been so clear on this issue. A trade war is in no one's interest. And my job is always to act in the UK's national interest.
Also tonight, the former Chief Constable of West Midlands Police has now been referred to the police watchdog over the controversial ban on Israeli football fans. Craig Guilford has been reported to the Independent Office for Police Conduct by the local Police and Crime Commissioner after admitting he gave incorrect evidence to MPs, including denying the use of AI in intelligence gathering that led to the Maccabi Tel Aviv ban. Guilford retired on Friday after losing the confidence of the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, but critics say that doesn't go far enough. The Commissioner, Simon Foster, says the episode damaged public confidence and any potential misconduct must now be independently examined. In Spain, the death toll tonight continues to rise. Now 40 people known to have died and dozens more left injured after two high-speed trains collided in the south of the country in what officials say is the worst rail disaster there in more than a decade. One train derailed and crossed onto the opposite track, smashing into an oncoming service and forcing carriages into an embankment. Witnesses described the wreckage as a mangled mess, with 75 people still in hospital. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has declared 3 days of national mourning, vowing to uncover the cause of what he called a moment of pain and tragedy. Kemi Badenoch has called an emergency meeting of her party's right wing tonight after two MPs defected to Reform UK in the space of just days. The Conservative leader has summoned senior right-leaning Tory MPs following the departures of Robert Jenrick and Andrew Rosindell, warning others not to follow. In a letter to MPs, she says the defections are not about ideology but about character, insisting the Conservatives remain the party of the right. She also warned MPs and staff against briefing against the party, saying those who try to undermine it will be dealt with firmly. Ms Badenoch has played down the fallout, calling the defections just a minor setback, not a defining moment. And the legendary Italian fashion designer Valentino Garavani has died at the age of 93. Known around the world simply as Valentino, he passed away at his home in Rome, surrounded by his loved ones. Tributes are pouring in already for the pioneering designer, whose name, of course, became synonymous with Italian elegance. Those are the latest headlines. I'll have another roundup for you at 8.
Thank you, Sam. Hello, good evening and welcome to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, tonight we have a very, very special show for you.
But to have a US president threatening tariffs, unless we agree that he can take over Greenland by some means, without, it seems, even getting the consent of the people of Greenland, I mean, this is a very hostile act. There's no other way I can put it.
Yes, the president has a certain...
Yes, as the transatlantic alliance faces its toughest challenge yet. We'll bring you the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage's conversation with the US Speaker Mike Johnson as he visits the UK ahead of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and also on tonight's show.
We are cracking down on free speech. Is this deeply felt within the Republican Party?
It is.
Yes, Speaker Johnson also weighs in on the brewing and growing diplomatic row between the US and the UK over the erosion of freedom of speech and the possibility of the British government even banning Elon Musk's X. But first, it's been a truly astonishing week for Reform UK as they made this announcement last Thursday.
Britain is broken. Britain needs reform. And reform needs you.
And then there was the Andrew Rosindell announcement from over the weekend.
This man has to be our next Prime Minister because our country needs reform.
But could there be a turquoise tsunami? Because earlier this evening, Nigel Farage pledged that more defections are on the way, posting on X that Rosindell will not be the last MP to join Reform before his 7th of May deadline, after which no further defectors, he claims, will be accepted. Now, while the Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch has called a mass meeting of Tories this evening, we understand the Common Sense group, that's the Jenrick faithful, and indeed she has not been pulling any punches over Robert Jenrick.
The whole country has seen that this is a man who says whatever it is that he wants to say to get votes, and that's why he's gone to Reform. That's where he belongs. And what I want to do is actually stop talking about this psychodrama and start talking about what we're going to do to fix the country.
Well, there's a huge amount to discuss, and I'm joined now to discuss this by the political strategist James Frayne. James, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure to have your company. There's calamity, there's chaos, and potentially there's a further wave of defections to come there, hinted by Nigel Farage. And of course, Kemi Badenoch, we understand, at present in a meeting with the Common Sense Group, trying to shore up these defections. Could this be terrible news for the Conservative Party?
I think it is terrible news. We've had a slightly odd few days, though, where quite a few Conservative commentators were suggesting that Kemi Badenoch had handled the whole affair very well, that the party was better off without Robert Jenrick. I mean, this is completely absurd. Robert Jenrick was by far the star performer of the Conservative Party over the course of the last 15 months or so since Kemi Badenoch was elected. It's a disaster that their top performer has left. And not only has he left, but he's left by saying that the Conservative Party did a terrible job in government. It's got no imagination in opposition. This is only going to chip away at the Conservative polling position, which is already in pretty dire straits as it is.
James Frayne, I did some analysis today with Electoral Calculus. Martin Baxter got the list through to me. And the fascinating point about those who have defected thus far, of course, that is Kruger, Rosendale and Jenrick. They're only the sort of 45th or below most likely to lose their seats in Reform UK. There are more than 40 MPs who are much likely to lose to Reform, some of them, including Richard Holden, top of the pops. There's an 86% likelihood to lose his seat to Reform UK, with a third of the entire Conservative rump looking likely to be defeated by Reform UK. Could this just be the tip of the iceberg in terms of defections?
I think absolutely, definitely. I think if you were to be fair to Danny Kruger, to Robert Jenrick and to Andrew Rosendale, I think these have been very long-standing principal politicians on the right of the Conservative Party that, for example, certainly in Andrew Rosendale's case, certainly in Danny Kruger's case, were always very pro-Brexit, very in favour of low taxes and these sorts of things. So to some extent, Reform has become their natural home. That said, as you've suggested, there are many, many, many Conservative MPs that are looking at effectively redundancy at the next election. And I think increasingly Conservative MPs are going to be looking at their wafer-thin majorities and they're going to start jumping. Now, at the moment, the Conservative Party are, roughly speaking, 20 points in the polls. I think this is because many voters think they'll cut the party some slack. They'll see where the party looks like they are just before the next election. But if it looks like the Conservative Party are, if anything, going to impede a right-leaning government being elected, I would not be shocked if the Conservative Party very rapidly goes off a cliff because people decide that it's much more important to get a right-leaning politician into power than it is simply to do a, as it were, protest vote and vote for the Tories.
James Frayne, we've said for years now, particularly since the days of Brexit, it's been cruelly exposed in many senses. The Conservative Party is two parties. The liberal-leaning end of the Conservative Party, you might uncharitably call them the wets, and then the true Conservatives. The idea that the party should be purged of one wing or the other appealed to people in the Conservatives because they wanted the party, many of them, to go back to the right. And instead, we're seeing here perhaps the most cherished assets of the political right going to Reform UK. Could that give us a spectre of the remainder of the Remainer rump, pardon my phrase, of the Conservatives now being, as you say, more like the Lib Dems, and that's perilous for them?
Well, the way the country is heading is effectively towards a national government. We are looking like there's going to be a reform-led coalition supported by presumably scores of right-leaning Conservative MPs. I would assume that as that national government looks more likely, Nigel Farage will do a deal with those sympathetic right-leaning Tory MPs that he favours. That's where we're heading at this point in time. The sort of wet part of the party, as you call it, could it in fact be in the ascendancy after the next election? But you're talking of a party at that point of sub 50 seats. So, you know, there's been sort of a lot of jollity that people like Robert Jenrick have left the party, but they are going to be left with a very, very strange little lefty Lib Dem style Conservative Party.
And James Frame, we here understand there is a meeting between Kemi Badenoch and the Common Sense Group this evening. Of course, Sir John Hayes heads that. He's high on the defection watch list. Of course, a rump of the Common Sense Group backed Robert Jenrick when he was trying to be leader. They are seen as the pro-Jenrick side of the Conservatives. If Kemi Badenoch reads them the riot act, it could have the opposite effect of consolidating the party. It could drive more away.
It could. I mean, but this is a slightly odd thing that Kemi Badenoch was viewed initially as being on the right of the party. It was one of the reasons why the grassroots voted her in. She seems to have talked herself into a slightly odd position recently where she's almost become a sort of left-leaning opponent of the reform tendency. That was never where she was. She was always viewed as being someone that was almost going to unite the right, if you like. So yes, I could see that very easily rubbing people up the wrong way. You know as well as I do, reading the riot act to politicians is an extremely dangerous game unless you are in an absolutely unassailably powerful position.
James Frayne, it's always fascinating to get your thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on GB News Tonight. I'm joined in the studio now by the journalist and the broadcaster Matthew Stadler. Matthew, welcome to Westminster. Always a pleasure to have your esteemed company. Well, it's all kicking off. What do you make of the last few days?
I'm astonished to hear James talk about Kemi Badenoch as being a lefty. I mean, that, I think, says a lot more about James's politics than it does about Kemi Badenoch's politics. Listen, I find this almost comical, the idea that Reform is supposed to be set up as an anti-establishment party, a breath of fresh air. It is the least breath of fresh air party that has ever been invented. Zia Yusuf, who's head of policy, for goodness sake, at Reform, keeps telling us, doesn't he? Don't trust the Tories. And what does his leader, Nigel Farage, do? He stuffs Reform full of Tory MPs, either former MPs or a couple of current MPs. There's nothing fresh about this whatsoever. If you are one of those people who turned to Reform because you were fed up with the Conservative Party after 14 years and you didn't think Labour were getting it right, why on earth would you vote for the rump, and I would put it this way, the rump of the Tory party who are migrating in desperation, mainly perhaps for their own careers? They keep talking about putting country before party, to Reform. It is completely bonkers.
Well, you say that, but if you look at the voting metrics of the defectors thus far, in actual fact, Andrew Rosendale's seat is leaning Conservative at the moment. So is Robert Jenrick's seat. So is Andrew Rosendale's, Danny Kruger's, and indeed perhaps one of the next on the hit list, Suella Braverman. All those seats are leaning towards Conservative. These aren't rats jumping a sinking ship, as Ed Davey puts. They've actually got pretty safe Conservative seats, but doesn't that say more about them as strong Conservatives? And if you're going to plunder a party, you might as well take its best jewels.
They would presumably fear losing their seats either to Reform at the next election or possibly, if the vote on the right is sufficiently split in their constituencies, maybe even to Labour. There is a toxic and vicious civil war playing out on the right of politics in our country at the moment.
There is on the left.
And Labour, as we all know, because we look at the polls,
hemorrhaging votes to Polanski,
are not doing well. We know that they've made some missteps. They've got 3 years to sort it out. But while Labour are struggling, the reaction of the right, and it's often been thus, is to tear themselves apart. Let's remember, and every single person watching your show this evening should know this, Nigel Farage said less than half a year ago, less than 6 months ago, that Robert Jenrick was not just a fraud, but someone he had always thought was a fraud. And what did Robert Jenrick say to Tory party members last year, according to The Telegraph? He said that Nigel Farage couldn't run a five-a-side football team.
That's politics.
You just say that's politics.
You often say disparaging things
Imagine,
about your
this is not a
opponents.
game.
You do.
This is about the future of our country. How on earth are we supposed to trust a top team comprising of two men who have said those things about each other in such recent history? A fraud. To call someone a fraud, presumably meant a political fraud, not a criminal fraud. To call someone a fraud, that is a profound insult. And there's Nigel
Nobody
Farage
seems bothered about it.
Well, indeed, because they're prepared to debase and embarrass themselves.
Robert Jenrick isn't bothered about it. Nigel Farage isn't bothered about it. You clearly are.
Voters will be bothered about
that's
it, I would
because
suggest.
you're rattled, because this could exacerbate the
Rattled?
death
They're rattled.
of the left. Matthew Stadler, a great start of the show. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, coming up, up. Just a moment's time is what you've all been waiting for. Nigel Farage in conversation with the US Speaker Mike Johnson.
We are cracking down on free speech. Is this deeply felt within the Republican Party?
It is.
The US Speaker will be weighing in on the brewing diplomatic row between the US and the UK over the erosion of freedom of speech and the possibility of the British government banning Elon Musk's X platform, and of course his view on the biggest threat to the transatlantic alliance in a generation. That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's